An intellectual carrot, the mind boggles.
You see? You see? Your stupid minds. Stupid! Stupid!
Earth has had Santa Claus long enough. We will bring him to Mars.
I've been afraid a lot of times in my life, but I didn't know the real meaning of fear until I had kissed Becky.
One thing will be clear. It's not for man to interfere in the ways of God.
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Earth vs. Soup, episode 171. I'm Aaron Pollier.
And I'm Darlene.
We watched one that, I don't think either one of us had seen before. But
no, I would have
remembered
the walking.
Yeah, so we watched a movie called Kronos from 1957.
And Aaron kept on telling me, we'll wait and do this on a
classics, like a classics
but
episode.
I don't think this really goes down as a classic.
I think it's a thoughtful movie that is punching way above its weight and missing about half the time. So, it's trying to be Forbidden Planet or This Island Earth, but it's not really reaching there. I think it's a very good movie, though. I just think there's some flaws in it. So, it's in black and white, and there are people involved in this that we've encountered many times before. Okay, so the story, the person that wrote the story is Irving Block, who also worked on Forbidden Planet and War of the Satellites. The actual screenplay was written by Lawrence Goldman, who also did War of the Satellites. The people that are in this, actually, the lead is Jeff Morrow as Dr. Gaskell, and you might remember him as Exeter from This Island Earth. He's actually a pretty damn good actor. Our female lead is Barbara Lawrence playing Vera Hunter, and I think we've seen her in a couple things before, but I'm not really sure. And the only other really notable person in this is the sidekick character, Dr. Culver, who's played by George O'Hanlon, who you might know as the voice of George Jetson from The Jetsons. So there are some people in here that we sort of recognize either by voice or by sight. And let's get into the plot. Because... Oh, go ahead.
Now you made me forget what I was saying. Go ahead.
Let's get into the plot. So the movie starts with flying saucer and theremin music, and then we drop down to the desert somewhere on Earth, and a man is driving a truck. Okay, he's driving through the desert, and his truck dies. It has like the amperage meter flickers back and forth. It's kind of your classic guy out in the middle of nowhere encounters a UFO and all electricity just kind of stops.
Because there is a UFO out there.
There is a UFO out there. And so right away I'm like, okay, I'm buying this so far. The guy kind of gets out, not really understanding what the hell's going on. And he sees a glowing speck on the ground nearby. So there's like a saucer out in the distance that he hasn't really noticed yet. But there's like this maybe like ping pong ball sized thing on the ground, right?
A glowing ball is what I call it.
And then he's blinded by a flash, and then like some sort of like light mist jumps into him.
An electrical.
Like an electrical field. So he slowly gets back into his truck that is now working, and he drives away. So he
turns around.
Well, he drives to a place that's called Lab Central, which is warning, government property, no trespassing, and a guard stops him. And he goes, okay, buddy, you're not supposed to be here. What are you doing? And he goes, I'm lost. I need directions. I don't know where I really am. I think I missed my turnoff. And he goes, okay, so let me see where you were wanting to go. And he pulls out a map. And this guy just attacks the guard, basically.
With a wrench.
With a wrench. So I'm thinking this guard, he's got a concussion. And it makes sense that he goes down, right? Like, I don't blame him at all. So this guy just calmly goes into the main building. He just walks in.
And this is one of my I've got to say this. There's no way that an alien would have all the information that it does.
I think this one would. See, at the very least at the time, okay, if you are an alien coming to Earth, you play by day the Earth stood still rules. Everyone's surprised that you speak English, that you know anything about the Earth. You're from another world. I've been monitoring your broadcasts since I left my planet. I've been traveling through space towards your planet, which means I'm getting basically a condensed version of your history as I'm passing through your TV signals and radio waves, getting closer. So how does this alien know that there is this research facility in the middle of the desert? Because it's not very secret that there is a research facility out in the middle of the desert. It's just that it's top secret and you have to have a pass to get inside. Like, they wear jumpsuits with Lab Central printed on them later on in the film. This is kind of like saying, how do you know about Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, Darlene?
But he walks straight to the office.
Sure. He probably the aliens passed over this place and monitored it for a while.
Okay,
and
whatever.
like I have no problems with this, at least with what's happening right away. Now I'll have problems with other things later on. I think it's kind of nonsense. So he walks in and he goes to a guy named Dr. Hubble Elliott.
The director.
He's the director of the place. Again, I understand why he knows that this guy's the director. It's pretty clear that in all the media, this guy is labeled as the director of one of the best research facilities in North America. And he comes in, Dr. Elliott is like, what the hell's going on? You know, who are you and what are you doing here? And the energy like pours out of this guy's head and goes into Dr. Elliott, who's stunned. And the guy that was driving the truck just falls over dead
with a heart attack.
Yeah, the guards come in and go, I'm so sorry, Dr. Elliott. This guy knocked me out, and there's another guard with him. And we got here as soon as we could. Did he do anything? And Elliott's like, no problem. Just get this guy, this body out of here. I don't want to have this here. Okay. So now we're going to be introduced to our other characters. We kind of understand that the aliens are able to jump between bodies. They're now in the director of this highly advanced research facility. Okay. And now we're introduced to a guy in a computer room who's Dr. Culver, the guy that voiced George Jetson. And he actually is working on a computer called Susie. And I forget what it stands for, but he treats Susie like a girl, basically. He sweet talks the computer all the time. He's like, she gets into a tizzy. She has her moods. Okay, fair enough.
Don't we do that still to our computer?
We still do it today. You know, we do it today. And I'm totally down with it. This guy is anyway.
And it's a room-sized computer, too.
He goes into, and this is where I'm going to bitch about this. He goes into a room of this other scientist, Dr. Gaskell, played by Jeff Morrow, Exeter from This Island Earth, with coordinates for an asteroid. Okay, now I have multiple issues here. Multiple issues. Because they have telescopes on campus, on the campus of this research facility.
Radio telescopes.
And real telescopes. We see them looking at live images that they're actually,
okay.
they have like,
I did forget about that one.
They have some sort of CCD system or like direct video system that goes
onto
it
a
can't
platter.
be a CCD system, not at this time, but yeah,
it goes onto a plotter.
Yeah, they have like a light table.
Yes.
That's what it is. And it's displaying stuff. So Dr. Gaskell has been tracking this asteroid, and Dr. Culver has been running the information through the computer to determine its orbital characteristics. Okay, fair enough so far. But then they bring up the image of the asteroid, and this is like the definition of a flying saucer. It's not like it's a speck of light out in the distance that you can't really tell what its shape is. This is a flying saucer. It's flashing with lights. And they call it an asteroid.
It's egg-shaped with a
ridge with a skirt. It has flashing lights on the bottom. He's calling it an asteroid, but he also calls it M8. 47. So
47.
that's Messier 47, which is like a cluster of stars.
Yeah, that's what I was like really threw off.
What but I mean the point is
And
that they're
astrophysics wouldn't physicist wouldn't have used a M47
so
to name it.
he's calling this an asteroid. It's blatantly a flying saucer. Blatantly. It's miles across though. I will give him that. Like they say it's miles across and it's moving at like X amount of miles per second, right? And he sends a whole bunch of these photos. Like he just starts pressing a button, and I guess it's scanning the images that are coming in and sending them down to the darkroom to have these photographs produced by a woman named Vera Hunter, played by Barbara Lawrence. Now, she's not a doctor. She doesn't have a degree, but she must actually be really skilled in her occupation to be working at this place. Because what is clear is that everyone that's working here is very respected by the governments of at least North America and the militaries, because we'll come to it later on, but like the Mexican Air Force listens to Dr. Gaskell when he says something. The US Air Force listens to Gaskell. And Gaskell listens to Vera Hunter when she says something.
But the director was the one that gave the US coordinates to take out it. So on that one,
To take out the target later on?
To take out the target where Gaskell, Dr. Gaskell uses the same telephone to call him.
So anyway, I don't understand why he thinks this is an asteroid and isn't a flying saucer. I don't understand why he's calling it M47, but then it changes orbit randomly.
Then I would go, oh, that is not an asteroid.
It's a flying saucer shaped thing with flashing lights on it that changes course.
I can see up to that point of going,
No, I can't.
It's an asteroid. Okay, Aaron.
I know, you can.
You don't want to call it something.
Yeah, I understand that, but like, there's flashing lights on it, for God's sake.
Aaron.
Anyway, he ends up thinking now it's a flying saucer, and it's coming in at Earth at a very high velocity. Okay, so he says, well, even if it's an asteroid, we have to do our best to destroy it. And he's still like alternately calling it an asteroid and possibly an intelligently piloted craft. And I said, okay, well, if it's over 4 miles wide and it's an asteroid coming in and it's in orbit,
stick your head between your legs and
kiss your butt goodbye. You're already too late. It's because they've already said multiple times it's inside the orbit of the moon. Like,
so they send up 3 rockets.
They send up, no, not 3 rockets, Darlene. They send up 3 V2 rockets.
Okay, I wasn't being
Okay.
okay. And
it's good stock
and armed
footage.
with nuclear
weapons. It's actually good stock footage. It's good stock footage. I like seeing V2s being launched that we captured during the war. That's really fun. So basically there's 3 rockets that go up, and then they impact the saucer, and there's this bright flash, and our viewpoint shifts over to Dr. Elliot, who passes out when these nuclear flashes happen. Okay. Then the other scientists find him right outside the door
and send him to the hospital.
And they don't think that the asteroid has actually been destroyed, even though there was like a flash and it's not there anymore. They think the asteroid's going to land somewhere in North America, and then radar picks it up. Oh, it's changed course again.
It's changed course because it's supposed to be over New York.
Yeah, and hopefully it will pass over New York, ladies and gentlemen. It's a 4-mile wide asteroid.
We have a news reporter that's all flustered in that.
Yeah, and it lands in the Pacific,
off the coast of Mexico,
with a giant blast. And again, with what they've been saying, the world is done. This is like, it's not as big as like a dinosaur killer, let's put it that way, but
which was on the other side of the Mexico.
But this is big enough to effectively render most creatures larger than a cat dead on Earth from the extreme winter that would occur. There should have been a giant tidal wave, like a tsunami, that took out everything in the Pacific.
And where are we in the next few scenes? We're right on the beach.
Yeah, they go down to Mexico.
Living in a house that is...
Well, so here's the point. Gaskell and all the scientists, everybody at Lab Central are pissed off because the government's like, there's no big deal. We're safe. It landed in the ocean. There's nothing wrong here. Why are you guys so angry? And they're like, look, it shouldn't, it was 4 miles wide. We should all be dead. That's not what they're saying, but I'm interpreting it as that. It shouldn't have changed course.
And it should have dissipated, and it shouldn't have
come down at all with because 3 nuclear weapons can destroy anything that size.
Yes, that is what they're actually saying.
And so they think that there needs to be a scientific expedition that goes out immediately, because he thinks that there is a possibility that there is an intelligence that controlled this flying saucer shaped thing.
Yeah, and Dr.
with flashing lights.
Gaskell talks to his not Elliot, because Elliot's in the hospital, the other doctor,
Arnold Culver, the computer guy, and Vera is there in that room. And it's because Vera and Dr. Gaskell are dating.
Yes, and they're not getting to go to the movies.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's kind of cute at the beginning. It does introduce the fact that Dr. Gaskell is sort of taken by his work more than anything. While he does actually care about Vera, he does. It's just that this is kind of important, Vera. The world should have ended. This shouldn't have happened.
And to get an expedition, there's going to be months, maybe a year before they do it.
Yeah. So
him and the
computer
guy,
all 3 of them end up going to Mexico.
She wasn't supposed to be going.
Yeah, but she goes.
But she takes half his chemical or something out of his trunk.
So they are going out. Gaskell and Vera are swimming out in the ocean, and Dr. Hubble Elliot opens his eyes back in the U.S., and the doctors start to want to do shock treatment on him because he's like acting strangely, and he's had like multiple kind of pass out events, and that's fine. There's a bit of a story with him that when he's electrocuted, he kind of comes back to himself, but when he's after a while of not being electrocuted, he's controlled by this alien creature. Like the alien is able to
fighting him.
Yeah, and he's able to like regain control and basically undermine Lab Central's efforts at figuring things out. Okay, so back down in Mexico, Vera proposes to Gaskell for marriage, and I thought that was kind of a cute scene.
Cute.
That was a cute scene. She proposes, and he's like, "Can you cook?" And it wasn't really sexist.
No.
It wasn't, because she laughed about it, and she's like, "No."
She takes off her little thing and goes, "Yeah, I can."
Yeah.
Her hair thing.
Yeah.
Like,
and then runs off into the water again, and he's like, "I guess you can." Yeah, it didn't come across as him being sexist because he was joking about it. He said it in kind of a joking way, and so it's clear to me that they are engaged at this point. It's just, I don't know. It's sort of, there's cute flirting that happens with it. There's cute flirting. See, you're smiling, Darlene. So it did not come across as sexist.
No.
Where in another movie with different characters, it could have been really sexist. This wasn't.
This is something that they've had the relationship previously, because you even get that when he walks in the dark room for the first time,
and she has like those huge big rubber gloves on, and
yeah, and he's flirting with her then too.
Yeah.
And then she brings out that comment, what about our
movie date?
Movie date.
So they're out on the beach and they're kind of flirting, and then something huge just rises out of the ocean on the horizon. It's like this dome, and it's actually the dome of this flying saucer. And everyone freaks out. And we go back to the United States, and Dr. Elliot seems to be himself and begs for help after having electroshock treatment. But they end up knocking him out. back in Mexico, the next morning, there's a huge robot / building that has just shown up on the beach. And if you do a search for Kronos online, you will immediately see this giant blocky robot.
4
And
legs. Well, actually 5, because there's that middle
there's
part.
like the middle thing that's like stamping down. It might look goofy to you, but in my opinion, it is a simplistic and very effective design. It doesn't need to be complex for what its purpose is. It needs to be as intimidating and absorbing as possible. So this black
and
coating that it has,
it also creates itself from energy to mass.
yeah, it basically soaks in energy from the environment and grows.
So
like
why make it
reflective?
Why no? What I was going to say is, why not make the simplest design?
Yeah, it's going to grow and build more of it. It's kind of like a
replicators.
It's like replicators, yeah. So,
but it replicates on the inside, I guess.
So back in the United States, after we see this robot, Dr. Elliot is talking to his therapist, and he's basically explaining that he's getting communication from these aliens, and that their entire plan is to strip mine new worlds for energy and resources, because they've reduced their own planet to nothing.
And this is the point that I was going, maybe this part of it, 1957's age, they didn't get the whole thought of what you could use, because a creature like this would actually go after the sun, not the...
Yeah, because it absorbs energy. Like, you can't actually... You can... Because later on, they drop nukes on it, and it's fine. Like, nothing happens to it. Like, the way it's described, that you could drop it into a star, and it would just slowly absorb the star's energy. But the problem with this is, and this comes back to most alien invasion movies, this is what gets me on most alien invasion movies, that there's no point in invading Earth for resources. What do you want from Earth? Do you want water? There's water on uninhabited moons that you don't need to fight over. Because invading Earth, no matter for what reason, you're going to have to fight us. And
Far Escape did use this one. Really good, though.
What?
It was the stem of the passion flower that they used to actually get their cognitive. Far Escape, the one creature.
Yeah.
They wanted Earth because it actually grew the...
Sure, so grow it elsewhere.
Get it and grow it elsewhere,
yeah,
yes.
I mean,
and that's what they have done.
You're a civilization that has a 4-mile wide spaceship that can travel between star systems. You can strip mine the Oort cloud for water and complex hydrocarbons. You can strip mine moons for that and never have to raise your finger in conflict, because regardless of how technologically advanced you are, regardless of it, if you fight somebody else for resources, or if you invade some place that's inhabited, you have to use resources to fight them / possibly even lose valuable personnel or use energy that you wouldn't normally have to use. And since their entire purpose, these aliens' purpose, is to just gather energy to replicate, to build more matter, why aren't they building a Dyson sphere?
Yeah. Around a black hole would...
Well, yeah, that you can do that too. You can build a birch world in the end. But so I'm out of right away. I'm like, I'm done, like, with the concept of the movie, but of an alien invasion. But I can go, okay, I'm gonna enjoy the other aspects of this movie. There's no reason at all, with resources, food, workforce, or anything like that, to ever invade another world. The only reason you would ever want to invade a world is if you had a religious or philosophical belief that you needed to invade to conquer other peoples, to enforce your own will or beliefs on them. That's fair. That's because that's kind of an irrational reason for invasion. My point is that there's no real rational reason to invade another world. You'd at the very least, if you were going to another inhabited world, you would want to make contact with them to share your culture, maybe get some insights into technologies that maybe you didn't progress along in a different way, or maybe, hey, look, we could use your help. We want to build an energy collection device around your star. Uh, you can have our technology too, and we can progress together. Something like that. Like, hey, that would be great. And then together we're, stronger together than we are apart. That we can share ideas and build off of each other.
And especially if you can go into people's minds.
No, they're going into people's minds. They're able to just make mass out of energy. So I mean, this is Star Trek Replicator post scarcity society stuff, right? There's no reason. There's no reason to
the Oort cloud. They passed the inner asteroid belt. Left it all there.
Yeah, where they could just go, hey, look, I'm going to strip mine the asteroid belt and build 1 billion of these ships, and we'll be fine. That's kind of. I'm sorry, I got away from the plot, but it's a pet peeve. These alien invasion movies just kind of tick me off. There's also the alien invasion thing that you just don't want competition.
Yes,
but again, that's an irrational invasion. That's an
irrational.
So let's get back to the plot. Where was I? So
it was with Dr.
So the scientists and Vera, the two scientists and Vera, go out on a helicopter. They go out to inspect the top of the robot. Now, the robot is huge, right? It's like hundreds and hundreds of feet tall. So they go out and land, and Dr. Culver has a Geiger counter that goes insane.
And I'd be like, I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. Yeah, like, why are you sticking around? And then they get into this strange, like, bubble scanning device kind of thing. It scans them and it knocks his glasses off, Culver's glasses off.
I thought it was a magnetic force, but then I was like, wouldn't the box, the radar, the radiation box have gone too? So I don't know what that was trying to do. But then they end up with a crack opening,
and they're looking
top.
down into it, and they see like this very advanced technology, and they realize that there's likely no one actually alive inside this, or at least alive in our understanding of it. Because remember, like, from our perspective as the viewers, the aliens, at least there might be one alien that's jumping between bodies at some sort of electrical field.
And like we said, it's the size of a ping pong ball, golf ball.
Yeah, that there could
maybe be the biggest as a tennis ball.
There could be billions of intelligent beings inside this giant robot, just living inside the machinery, like as electrical signals,
as a computer.
Yeah, living in the Matrix / living in a Matryoshka brain of some sort. It's not a Matryoshka brain, but like in computational space, they're existing. Now, the movie doesn't say this. This is me understanding like weird concepts of transhumanism or megastructures or philosophical ways to extend,
Yeah, we like that YouTube.
Yeah, there's a couple YouTube people that we like listening to, but I read books on this, so it's
megastructures.
And I've written things for Star Trek Adventures with this. So yes. Moving on, they decide to get the hell out of there. They're just, nope, we're done. So back in the U.S., Dr. Elliot kills the medical guy taking care of him by frying him in the lab by like throwing him against breakers and like wires.
And he was holding a fuse, and because at the time I go, oh, and without fuses like in Star Trek, and then he grabs on something, and I'm like, oh, sorry, that's a fuse.
Yeah. So at this point, Elliot then like seemingly commands Kronos, the giant robot, to begin moving, and it heads towards the nearest power plant. So it hits the power plant. There's like electrical arcing all over it. It stomps through and basically wrecks everything after it's done.
And destroys the town.
Yeah. So this is where I thought it was kind of cool, and I explained this to you. This makes sense. The Mexican Air Force comes out, because this is in Mexico still. Mexican Air Force comes out, and you're like, oh, those are P-51s. What are they doing? And I'm like, we gave them P-51s after the war when we started flying Sabres and things. So the Mexican Air Force having P-51s is totally legit. And we go into like the cockpit with the Mexican Air Force colonel that's like in charge of this wing of P-51s coming in to attack.
Yeah, and they're in the helicopter.
Yeah.
3 of them in
They're
a
like,
tiny
"No,
doggone Bell helicopter.
I think Kronos actually like shoots down one P-51 like with an electrical bolt, but then like they're firing 50 cals into Kronos and it's doing nothing. It's doing nothing. So they say, we're just gonna go back to base. We'll figure out something. Maybe the US can figure out something. We just have these P-51s. They're super cool. So Gaskell and Vera think that attacking Kronos will just make it more powerful at this point. Now, again, with something that we've said with a lot of the Godzilla films, scientists just making assumptions that turn out to be true.
I think that assumption came after the electric plant.
That it's gotten bigger or...
It got bigger or something. You can't tell because it looks like the same thing.
But now they've gone back to Lab Central, and this is where Elliot ends up attacking Vera and Gaskell and throwing them... Gaskell ends up throwing Elliot against the breakers again, and it shocks the hell out of him. I thought they would kill him, but it turns out it didn't. It just basically let him get control of himself again, and he starts explaining that the aliens can basically make matter from energy, that they need to stop an atomic attack that the U.S. Air Force...
That he initiated.
Yeah, that he initiated, that the Air Force is being sent out. Now, during this time, Kronos has moved from where it is in Mexico, and it's moving towards LA. And it's gotten into the US, and there's this cool shot of it actually like climbing through the Hollywood Hills.
Yes.
And then it
Tijuana is already gone.
It's all wrecked. And so it looms up over LA, and like LA's spread out behind it, like, well, yeah, below it. I thought that was kind of cool.
And the horrible part about this is somebody goes, oh, at least maybe the mountains would stop it. And I'm like going, it had to have walked through a lot of mountains to get to where it was.
It's hundreds of feet tall. It can climb over them. Like, it's not having a problem at all. It's just, yeah. So anyway, you guys have to call off this attack. It's just going to make it stronger. So Gaskell gets on the phone to the Air Force, gets onto the Pentagon. I don't care who, if the line's busy. You get me the Pentagon and tell them to call off this nuclear attack. Okay, so Gaskell has a lot of freaking pull. Let's put it that way. And I guess the Pentagon and the Air Force is like, I guess if Dr. Gaskell says we stop the nuclear attack.
Yes, but they got NCOs controlling these people.
Yeah. The flights. Yeah.
A staff sergeant.
They get read out the coordinates for this atomic attack, by the way, on Kronos, and it's not in LA. It's not LA. It's actually pretty far south in Mexico. Like they must have filmed a scene and thought, oh, we're going to do this atomic attack in Mexico. So they call off the attack because, maybe we shouldn't detonate a thermonuclear weapon next to a major population center that hasn't been fully evacuated. It is being evacuated, but in a pretty lazy, half-assed sort of way.
Their stock footage is laughable because they show the traffic, and I'm like, oh, that's not an evacuation because the cars are going both directions. In evacuation, everybody is going out of the city.
The guys in the bomber are like, oh, great, thanks. We don't have to drop this bomb on people that, our own countrymen. Thanks. And they pull off, and then Kronos is like, no, and draws them in with like its antenna. And they're like, oh crap. And it draws it in, and the bomb detonates like right over Kronos. So LA is now vaporized, theoretically. Theoretically, it should be vaporized because it's a thermonuclear weapon.
And there should be this trail from Mexico on down where got stomped by the creature.
None of this is mentioned because Kronos, when this bomb detonates, he basically sucks it all in. Like after it blows up and there's the fireball and all of that, they basically just reverse the footage.
The footage too.
And it all sucks in. So that means LA is still wrecked, right? LA is still wrecked. And remember, this bomb was basically detonated at effectively ground level. So you don't want to do that. Well, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do.
The plane went into the side of Kronos.
So you generally want to detonate a bomb thousands upon thousands of feet in the air. because the closer to the ground you get, the more radioactive fallout you get.
With the dirt coming up.
Yeah, you basically irradiate dirt and vaporize it, and it goes everywhere. So not only is LA wrecked, depending on the direction of the wind, theoretically most of the wind should have been blowing out to sea, though, from LA, because a lot of the wind comes off land and goes
No, it goes from
hot land going out. Well, yeah, it depends on the time of the day. I guess you could get a sea breeze, but theoretically, I don't know. There's a lot of fallout from this. Let's put it that way. There would have been. So, Elliot ends up going into this isolation room and passing out, and he ends up vomiting what looks to be mercury. Like mercury just spills out of him.
Yes.
And it goes right to the edge of this isolation room and just starts sparking like it's grounding out.
Because it's a sealed room that could hit a bunker can be hit. That was already said in the earlier of the movie.
So I guess Elliot at this point is dead. But he was able to like effectively kill the creature that was inhabiting him, so it couldn't go out and possess somebody else. So Gaskell, Culver, and Vera are all trying to figure out how to kill Kronos, and they come up with another half-assed sort of idea. In one way, they just make another assumption. Well, I guess the only way to destroy this thing is to actually just give it so much energy that
reverse it,
like reverse the polarity on the magnetic field.
How do you know its antennas is one is positive, one is negative?
Yeah, it's them making these big assumptions. So they come up with this idea that they're going to dump a bomb. They're going to blow a bomb up over top of Kronos that basically spews out this material that will cause an electrical short over the two electrodes of Kronos, that like these two antennas.
It's got one that's got a crystal on it, and the other one is a.
What will happen, and this is what happens, so we can just kind of move into the plot. It basically shorts it like a battery, and it makes it pour all of its energy back into itself in this kind of overload.
Feedback.
Yeah, in this feedback loop. So Kronos
in generators, it's called reactive load.
Okay, so it basically starts melting down from the inside out. And it does. The plan works, and it blows up in another massive nuclear blast, effectively making sure that any survivors that were in LA are now gone.
Yeah, what survived is now, and they even show a picture of the desert with this melted
Kronos out there.
And I'm like,
but we don't hear anything about the UFO, do we?
No.
The end. So
a lot of missing ends and a lot of
there's a lot of loose ends in this. So we've already kind of bitched about me hating alien invasion movies for the simple fact that they're always invading for the wrong reason.
And I actually, some of this I could see some books that I've read, science fiction, fantasy books, that kind of take a little bit of this. So maybe it does have effect in certain things.
How?
Something using energy.
Sure.
Bases.
Sure.
Not the whole I'm going to take over the world thing, but the energy.
See, when you're dealing with like using energy and producing mass out of it, okay, you immediately think of Star Trek and replicators. But again, that's wrong as well, because what Star Trek does is the replicators use already existing mass. Like there's think of it this way, there's big vats of here's just nothing but carbon, here's nothing but oxygen, here's nothing but, and
they recycle your stuff too.
Yeah,
because
so you already have the atoms, you're just putting it together. The replicator is basically just putting it together in the way that you need to. Now,
so your T could be your own P.
Sure, but it's just been broken down into atoms and then reconstituted into something completely else. It doesn't mean that it's made out of P. It's made out of atoms that were made from whatever, right? Now, in Star Trek, at least, the replicators, if you say, I want to have a gold ring, right? And let's say the ship doesn't have any gold in its replicator resources, it can make gold from energy or through using what its stocks do have to combine it through
It would probably take gold from the doggone electrical.
no, it wouldn't. You wouldn't actually. It wouldn't use something that's already in existence. It has to be in its like material bank, basically. But that's not to say that a starship wouldn't have random heavy metals and things like that available. But the point is, if you like say, I want to replicate a 500-pound gold block, it would go, I don't have that. I can do it, but it's going to cost X amount of energy to do it. And your energy credits for today are
Blah.
this, and this. Now, if you want to save up, that's
and
where.
Starve.
Well, no, I mean, because the energy credits for making a beautiful Michelin star steak and fries, would be like next to nothing. The point is
you
that
do have this in. That's what's so interesting about Voyager is that comes into play.
Well,
when they
don't
want
have,
it to.
Yeah, when they want it to, because you technically have no limit to the amount of resources available to you in a starship, because you're constantly encountering other bodies. Like, hey, I'm going to have my Bussard Ram scoops scooping up the interstellar medium, so I'll never be low on hydrogen or helium, likely deuterium. I can do a quick dive into a gas giant's atmosphere and pull up a whole bunch of stuff. But if I wanted to, I could just stop next to a comet and beam it all on board and use the material that I beamed on board
or an asteroid
to fill my replicator tanks. Okay. So what I'm trying to say in a really roundabout way, that Kronos is building mass from energy in a very, very inefficient way. What Kronos should be doing is basically hoovering up the dirt, sucking up all the dirt and slagging it, melting it down to produce more metal, and it has these kind of systems that it can like spin out, refining systems, things like that. And it's also storing the energy that it's able to get from the environment to help power all these systems that it has to grow, right? So again, like, it's sucking in energy to grow. Well, no, you shouldn't be able to grow from that kind of energy.
You should if you can grow from that energy, you'd be floating out around a sun with a huge solar sail collecting the solar winds and solar radiation.
So I'm just okay. We're kind of bitching about what's wrong with the movie. There's a lot of scientific.
But my
BS
thought
in this
was,
movie.
did they understand that in 57?
They should have.
Okay.
They had nuclear weapons. They understood the E=mc². That when you detonate a large nuclear weapon, you're still only turning X amount of grams of matter into energy. You're not making tons of matter into energy. You're not. Like, it's grams. And yet like, this thing is like, I'm going to like a coal-fired power plant and sucking X amount of megawatts out of it, and I'm going to grow like 100 feet. No, you're not. Sorry, that doesn't work that way. But the astrophysics silliness of him thinking it's an asteroid, it's ludicrous. That's ludicrous. The computer stuff I was okay with. All the computer stuff in this was great. But anything else that doesn't work, since we started with that, I hate starting with doesn't work. I rather like to start with what does, but we've been bitching.
Well, we did say what did work. The simplicity of the big, huge robot was kind of cool.
Actually, very cool. I really like that. I think it's very good.
I don't know if you said the acting was good.
I think the acting overall was good. I'm not going to say it's excellent, but Jeff Morrow as Dr. Gaskell did a pretty damn good job. I think he is a good actor.
I think Elliot did good when he was inside trying to lock himself and the creature in.
Oh, John Emery is Dr. Elliot? Yeah.
He did. You could see the struggle in his face as he's trying to break the controller.
Yeah.
The thing that allows the password. But if this is an energy beam, it would have just overread it.
Sure. But yeah, I guess the acting in this is pretty good. It's pretty good overall. I would even say that most of the special effects that are in it are just kind of like either compositing or rear projection, something like that. And it's fine. It's fine.
They use stock footage, okay,
Yeah, good use of stock footage. They
because they
didn't.
used that. What did you call that? The star.
Well, no, it's a
Star-
super saber. Yeah,
Super
there's
Saber.
a use of a super saber in this. So that's like the FY 100. But what else worked? I really like the pacing of it is fine too. Like you're not bored in this movie.
And
There's
it
no
wasn't jarring really to go back and forth
oh
as it did
between
that
Mexico
one,
and the base. Yeah.
as it did that one movie that we were watching that just
No, I think this was fine for pacing. Even the scene switching was fine. I think Jeff Morrow and Barbara Lawrence were charming together. I don't think they had like chemistry, like super amounts of chemistry, but it was cute. Them flirting was cute, and it felt fine. It didn't feel weird. Let's put it that way. It didn't feel weird or forced, like it can,
or icky.
or icky. And that can happen a few times. That's happened a few times. So it's weird because I don't like the concept of the movie is fine, but how it's presented, the science behind it or the rationale is ludicrous, obviously. But for 1950s science fiction, it's very very acceptable. Let's put it that way. I just likely was in the mood of overthinking things when we watched this. So I'm not sure I should even be bitching about it in the things that don't work. Because if I took out that whole aliens shouldn't be invading for this, or you don't convert energy into mass like that, um, if I took that out, what really honestly doesn't work in this?
The walk, the same thing that works too. The walking
robot?
the walking
No,
skyscraper.
No, when it's walking, I say that works because that's not a model. That is hand drawn animation of it moving.
There is animation in this,
and
yes.
that looks good for hand drawn animation. It is clearly hand drawn animation. I liked it.
Oh, you need to tell Chuck about that one.
Yeah, we'll need to talk to Chuck about that because Chuck loves animation. So he teaches animation.
Yeah.
So, but outside of that, I don't know if I can really say that anything doesn't work in this. It's a very well made movie. It's very competent. I really like the acting in it. Is there anything that you would change in this? Honestly,
I don't know. It wouldn't be a premise that you could go off of today.
Something invading.
You couldn't do the same thing in today's movie. It works in the 50s, but I don't think it worked today.
I'm sure that it's been tried recently. There's a lot of science fiction movies that have been released within the past, let's say, 10 years that I've just refused to go see because they're super dumb, like Moonfall. Like I never went to see Moonfall because I think that has something to do with like there's robots or something in the moon that can like eat everything, or they're like nanite swarms, and something like that, like a nanite swarm coming down to Earth because it's just eating everything. It's not just the asteroids, it's just eating everything. Fine, okay, but that's not really something you can effectively fight like this movie.
That's Grey Goo in it.
It's World's End done. Yeah, anyway, but I don't know if I would change anything in this movie either. Like I'm not saying it's a perfect movie.
Would you recommend it?
I'm going to recommend it. Yeah. It's not even a light recommendation. I'm going to recommend it because I think it's a very well-made movie. It's competent. There's no bad acting in it. It doesn't stand out.
No, it doesn't stand out.
It doesn't stand out, but except for Kronos, except for the giant robot that they call Kronos. Kronos is so weird and basic blocks.
Well, I like the computer room that they have.
All the sets are good. All of them are actually good. But this is not a movie that you would watch with the sound off. Like no. I know I've said that about some movies in the past, at least several reviews. There's good dialogue in this, even though some of the dialogue is science nonsense. There's good dialogue. The characters are charming. I don't know what else I can say. It's weird because, like I said, it doesn't stand out, but I still enjoyed it.
And it's got a very small cast, which
I like.
Yeah, makes kind of
easier to keep in your head who everybody is and whose relationship.
The one
is
thing that I
with
could
who.
say was wrong was they didn't introduce the characters really well. You actually had to figure it out, and it took a while.
Really? It's because you don't wear glasses when you were watching the movies, and there were nameplates on the doors that they went into and lingered the camera on.
Bad me.
As cinema shorthand. Yeah, it's bad. You need to wear your glasses. It's cinema shorthand. Like, oh, here's the office that this truck driver is going into. It says, Dr. Hubble Elliott on it. Okay, director or whatever. And you're like, I got it. I know who this guy is. He's the director. He's Dr. Elliott. And then the nameplate outside of Dr. Gaskell's office is Dr. Gaskell, astrophysics, and okay, I get it. Yeah, I know you're looking all chagrined, I know, and slapping your own hand. But that's it works in that way. You don't have to have like needless dialogue. It's a quick visual shorthand to tell exactly who's who at first. And then they don't have that outside the dark room. But they talk to Vera. Hi, Vera, how's it going? And
yeah, I didn't know her last name because I don't think it ever got mentioned. It did?
It did get mentioned like twice.
The Mexican people?
No. I think it was when they were leaving, and it was the doctor that was overseeing Dr. Elliott with the therapy. They're like, where is Miss Hunter going with you or something like that? And he's like, no, she's staying behind. And then she ends up going with, but he says Miss Hunter. Okay, I get it. That's Vera Hunter. No problem. But yeah, I recommend it. I enjoyed this movie. I think you did too, right? Like,
yes, I did.
It's not like it's a huge enjoyment. It's not on my list of like the top list, but this is a well-made movie, and I can understand why a lot of people actually really do love this movie.
Once I got my caffeine in, I was doing better with it.
So we both recommend it. I don't know what we're going to do next. Probably another horror movie, horror/sci-fi movie, but I'm glad that we watched this. I really am. Any final thoughts?
Nothing really.
Okay, so I'm Aaron.
I'm Darlene. Good evening.
And keep watching the skies.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.